So, how could a funding reduction affect patients and providers?
Well, for patients, there would be less clinical trials for them to be able to enroll in. There are patients who have had every standard and approved treatment, but they're looking for something more, the next potential breakthrough. There would also be a slowing in progress of getting new therapies, new treatments approved, and that would directly impact patients now and in the future. For providers, we would have less tools to offer to better treat our patients. And we might end up with less providers because I can tell you, with all the uncertainty with respect to federal funding of cancer research, we're getting some what we call brain drain, which means some of our best and brightest young investigators are leaving to go to other countries. And some are choosing to take different pathways and not go into oncology anymore since they're worried about continued funding for cancer research.
Hey everyone, this is Jonathan Marx from GoToHealth. I hope you're doing well today. An important topic. The President's federal budget proposal for fiscal year 2026 calls for deep cuts to the National Institutes of Health and the National Cancer Institute, two agencies that support a broad range of scientific and clinical research. The proposed reduction is close to 40%, making it one of the most significant funding cuts in decades. Here's the problem. Federally funded cancer research has fueled nearly every major advancement in cancer care over the last 50 years and contributed to progress in other areas of medicine. Today, more than 18 million Americans are alive thanks to federally funded cancer research, screening, and prevention. If these cuts are implemented, it will be devastating to the pace and progress of cancer research in America. With us to talk about this today is Julie R. Gralow, MD. She's the Chief Medical Officer and Executive Vice President of the American Society of Clinical Oncology. That's ASCO. She can discuss the role of federal research investment, what the proposed changes could mean for patients and providers, and how the scientific community may be affected. Before we interview Julie, we want to keep bringing you the stories and insights you love. Help us out, please, by leaving a 5-star review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or wherever you listen to us. It helps other dedicated listeners like you discover the show. So welcome to the show, Dr. Julie Gralow. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Good. So the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, and the National Cancer Institute get significant funds from the federal government. What kinds of cutbacks are we looking at?
In the President's 2026 budget proposal, there is written in a 40% cut to the NIH and the NCI, and yet it's Congress that ultimately decides the budget. So this cut has not yet been put in place. It's a really critical time to work with Congress on funding for these important institutes.
And what types of cancer research are typically supported by federal funding?
Yeah, the NIH and NCI typically fund kind of what we call the foundational research, a lot of the more basic research about what is cancer, what causes a normal cell to become a cancer cell, how does it evade our immune system, what treatment strategies can we devise to impact that. So that foundational research that can lead to the next big breakthrough. We also fund a large clinical trial network with federal research funding where patients from all 50 states can enroll in trials that are studying what might be the next big breakthrough. And we fund through the National Cancer Institute trials looking at rare cancers, uncommon cancers, or in smaller populations such as pediatric or childhood cancers. Mm-hmm. We fund trials that are looking at better quality of life and supportive care or reducing the treatment. So these de-escalation trials, those are the kinds of trials that private funders are not looking at, that industry is not interested in, and yet they are critical for our patients.
And for those who are not familiar, can you describe the clinical trial process and what that does and how it works, just briefly?
Well, every new treatment for cancer is tested through clinical trials, through clinical research. We compare the standard of care, what's happening right now, with a proposed new therapy treatment. And if successful, the new treatment then becomes a new standard of care. We can't get FDA drug approvals unless we do clinical trials. But the ideas for all of those clinical trials, if you go way back in time to where did we get the idea to target that gene or whatever, they came out of a lab somewhere usually. And that also was federally funded.
Got it. So, how could a funding reduction affect patients and providers?
Well, for patients, there would be less clinical trials for them to be able to enroll in. There are patients who have had every standard and approved treatment, but they're looking for something more, the next potential breakthrough. There would also be a slowing in progress of getting new therapies, new treatments approved, and that would directly impact patients now and in the future. For providers, we would have less tools to offer to better treat our patients, and we might end up with less providers, because I can tell you, with all the uncertainty with respect to federal funding of cancer research, we're getting some what we call brain drain, which means some of our best and brightest young investigators are leaving to go to other countries. And some are choosing to take different pathways and not go into oncology anymore, since they're worried about continued funding for cancer research.
That's pretty sad. Are there particular areas of research that would be most affected?
Well, I think that two exciting areas are immunotherapy. We've been studying immunotherapy and how our immune system reacts with cancer for decades, but it's just been in the past decade or so that we've actually learned how to turn our immune system on when the cancer is trying to trick the immune system and say, hey, don't recognize me, don't attack me. So that's very exciting. And also precision oncology. Precision oncology is where we are now. We're not just treating all lung cancer the same or all breast cancer the same. We're breaking it down into, okay, here's lung cancer that has these 3 mutations, alterations in the DNA. That's what has turned it into a cancer. So let's treat those pieces of it. So precision oncology, which is really just skyrocketing now, where we're understanding each individual cancer in each individual patient and then targeting treatments to that, will be majorly impacted, because we are really just starting to get into that era. It's very exciting, but the pace will be majorly slowed down if we cut the funding.
And I'm assuming private industry it's not worth it for them to invest in this basic research because there's no money to be made yet. Is that how this works?
Well, I think a lot of the basic research ends up being further developed through industry, but they take the winners, and it takes a lot. A lot of basic science is you test an idea, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and then you go and you pursue those that work. So industry is not funding all of that groundwork and picking out what the winners are.
Right. So the federal government really plays an important role in this foundational research.
Absolutely. And all of the immunotherapy that we have available now was initially funded by the National Cancer Institute. It led to a Nobel Prize for all of that groundwork that was done. The discovery of the BRCA gene, that's part of the inherited predisposition for many patients with breast and ovarian, and now we're learning many other cancers.
Oh, wow.
That was all initially funded by federal research. Dr. Mary Claire King actually fought the establishment and said, I'm collecting families where I know there's a genetic component. And everybody else said, no, cancer's not genetic. But the government, the NCI, funded that research, and it really led to a change in how we prevent and treat those kinds of cancers now.
And for those people who don't know, the NCI, the National Cancer Institute, does that fall within the National Institutes of Health, or is it independent?
It's one of the many institutes of the National Institutes of Health, but it has interesting funding because traditionally the NIH has its own funding called out in the congressional budget, but the NCI, especially recently, has had its own carve out specifically called out in the budget. So it's one of the institutes, but it has also had kind of call outs within the congressional budget each year.
Is there a role for the public to play in encouraging Congress to fund these research initiatives?
Absolutely. The timing is critical right now. We have until September 30th to pass a bill funding the federal government for 2026. So Congress is actively working on coming up with that bill and somehow rectifying it with the president's budget proposal.
Mhm.
Cancer is typically bipartisan, in terms of support, the research and the treatment of it. We all, no matter what side of the aisle we're on, we all have family members, if not personally, have been impacted by cancer. So this is a great time to contact members of Congress, encouraging them to support federal cancer research funding in the 2026 budget.
And Julie, you are the Chief Medical Officer and Executive Vice President of the American Society of Clinical Oncology. Tell us about what your society does.
We are a professional organization. We have almost 50,000 members, and we are the healthcare professionals that treat cancer patients, essentially.
So it's really a very large group of physicians who are in clinical care.
Absolutely.
Got it. If people want to learn more, they can go to ASCO.org. That stands for the American Society of Clinical Oncology. Julie, what question haven't I asked that I should have? Or what kind of message would you like to leave with our audience today?
Well, I think cutting funding now would have devastating consequences for all of the progress we've made, but also for the health of future generations. So this is the right time for people to contact their members of Congress and tell them they need to help support federal cancer research funding. Investing in cancer research is not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Good. Thank you for that. Really appreciate your coming on the show to talk about these cutbacks today. It's so important and so vital we maintain them. We've been talking with Julie Gralow, MD. She's the Chief Medical Officer and Executive Vice President of the American Society of Clinical Oncology. She previously served as the Jill Bennett Endowed Professor of Breast Medical Oncology and Professor of Global Health at the University of Washington School of Medicine. She's also the founder of the Women's Empowerment Cancer Advocacy Network. Julie, before we go, tell us about that.
That was a project I started actually with USAID funding in Ukraine, a breast cancer assistance project where we helped develop and support and educate patient advocates in low and middle resource settings. So the survivors of breast and cervical cancer who were willing to tell their story and to talk actually to their own policymakers about the need for better cancer treatment and cancer funding. So we started in Ukraine, expanded to Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and then the Uganda Cancer Institute helped us create a network through East Africa of patient advocates who were willing to speak out and say, I had cancer, I survived. There's a lot of stigma in a lot of these areas. And then work with the oncology care providers and their policymakers on making cancer treatment better in their own countries.
Is there any equivalent of this in the United States?
Well, we have a lot of patient advocacy groups who do tremendous work, who go to Congress, who come to our ASCO meetings and participate in them. So we have a lot of examples in the United States as well. And that was where we got the model to form the Women's Empowerment Cancer Advocacy Network in other parts of the world.
Good. Thank you for being with us today. We've been talking with Julie Gralow. I've already talked to you about her background. So she's really has done impressive work in the area of cancer. Thanks so much for being with us, Julie.
Thanks for having me.
And before we go, just a quick reminder, if you liked what you've heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you listen to us. It helps keep this content free and reaching the right people just like you. This has been Jonathan Marx with GoToHealth Media. And as we say at the end of every show, go to health. Take care, everybody. We'll see you again next time. Bye. Thank you for tuning in today to Go to Health. You are one of almost 10,000 people per day who enjoy the evidence-based health information offered by our guest health experts. You can watch us on our website and YouTube and listen to us on 8 podcast networks. Be sure to join Jonathan Marx in our upcoming shows each week. If you like our show, please share this episode with your friends and colleagues. You can subscribe to the show, join our email list, send us feedback, browse through the online store, and view our library of over 150 shows at GoToHealthMedia.com. See you next time, and remember to elevate your life with GoToHealth.